Hello, and welcome back. It is I, Andrew, your favorite revisionist of all things Oscar related. I'm going to be taking a little detour with a special three-part series in the lead up to Furiosa, which releases later this month, and count down my top 50 favorite action films, as well as giving some shout outs to social media friends who shared some of their favorites as well. And while I have you here, it would mean a lot if you took the time to subscribe to the channel on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, as well as rating and reviewing the show. With that out of the way, let's get down to business. Before I get into my list, here are just a few favorites from some of you that sent me your picks. First up is Luke over on Instagram, who said Mission Impossible Fallout is number one for him in terms of pure action. Now, I don't mean to break your heart, Luke, but this movie did not make my top 50, though you might find Tom Cruise making an appearance at some point. Next up was a list given to me by All Things Movies over on Twitter at That Movie Page, who sent me their top 10 in no order: Raiders of the Lost Ark, Die Hard, The Matrix, Mad Max Fury Road, Speed, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Face Off, Mission Impossible Fallout, The Rock, and Big Trouble in Little China. Those are some excellent picks, and you can expect a few of those to feature on my list as well. And finally, avid listener and future guest of the show, Heather Stewart, who you can find on both Instagram and Twitter, sent me a message that read, and I quote, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Dark Knight, The Matrix, Inception, and Skyfall, though not all of these are classic action, obviously, end quote. And I want to thank Heather for saying that because it's the perfect segue into the start of the countdown. Now, I know there will inevitably be some people that disagree with what ends up on the list, or maybe doesn't make the list at all, based on my classification of what an action film is. That just comes with the territory when you make a list like this, so I encourage you to reach out to me directly with your feedback, both positive and negative. You can DM me directly on any social media platform at RevAlmanac, or email the show at revisionistalmanac@yahoo.com. It's time to get the countdown underway. Coming in at number 50, it's 1993's Last Action Hero, directed by John McTiernan. I think this is the perfect movie to kick off the list. It's both a comedy that plays on the tropes of action movies, specifically those of its star Arnold Schwarzenegger, and an actual action movie itself. It's fun, it's silly, it's meta, it's really ahead of its time, and I think deserves placement on the list. Up next at number 49 is 1964's Goldfinger, directed by Guy Hamilton. The third film in the Bond franchise, and for a lot of people has held up as the best of them still. I personally prefer Casino Royale with Daniel Craig as a movie in general, but I don't think that movie fits the action description as well as Goldfinger does. Sean Connery was the definition of cool in the 1960s. The movie had awesome gadgets, great looking cars, an enjoyable villain, and a kick ass theme song. It's also noteworthy for being the first Bond film to win an Academy Award, grabbing the prize for Best Sound Editing. At number 48 is 1995's Bad Boys, directed by Michael I Fucking Love Drones and Explosions Bay. Now, listen, I know I'm on record having issues with Michael Bay's directing style, especially over the last 15 to 20 years, but I do really enjoy most of the stuff he put out in the 1990s. Bay took the buddy cop genre and amped it up, making it bigger, louder, and flashier. I love the chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, and the movie's success allowed for an equally awesome sequel in 2003, a third movie in 2020 I'd rather not talk about, and hopefully a good final entry in the series later this year. This movie isn't going anywhere on my list because it's Bad Boys for life. At number 47, another 1997 classic, Simon West's Con Air. This is a prison break movie on an aircraft featuring Nicolas Cage, his iconic and memeable hair, John Malkovich, John Cusack, and Ving Rhames. Does it really get more 90s than that? Now, not everyone loved this movie when it came out, but the late great Roger Ebert was on the Con Air bandwagon. In his review, he said it moves smoothly and with visual style and verbal wit. If it's good enough for Mr. Ebert, you better believe it's good enough to make my list. Up to number 46. This will be the second and final time James Bond will show up on the list. It's time for 2012's Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes. In my humble opinion, Skyfall is the peak of all 25 films about 007. It certainly doesn't hurt to have one of the top directors working today in Sam Mendes controlling things behind the camera. There's some spectacular set pieces and intense action, but the impactful emotional story of the movie really puts this one over the top for me. The movie also features an Academy Award winning actor, Javier Bardem, giving his all as the primary antagonist to Daniel Craig's Bond. I'll await whatever comes from the franchise with a new actor taking the lead, but I think it'll be quite a while before anything Bond related reaches the lofty heights of Skyfall. At number 45, my pick for the defining film in the car genre, it's 1973's Vanishing Point. Now, while films like Bullet and The French Connection have epic car chases, I love the way Vanishing Point makes the car and what happens in it the central focus of the entire film. The film's influence runs deep, with Steven Spielberg being a big admirer, as exhibited in his first film, Duel, and obviously Quentin Tarantino holds this movie near and dear to his heart, which can be seen throughout his own car film, Death Proof. Number 44 is Tony Scott's 2004 revenge action thriller, Man on Fire. Denzel Washington going on a killing spree to save a young girl, played by Dakota Fanning. A full decade before he became the equalizer, Denzel was kicking ass and taking names throughout Mexico City. This movie has a legion of supporters that have been spreading the word for 20 years now, and it feels to me like it's maintained its status all these years later. At number 43, let's head to Hong Kong and enter the underground world of the Kumite. Yep, I'm talking about 1988's Bloodsport. I might have to attribute my love of mixed martial arts all the way back to this Jean-Claude Van Damme flick. Famously marketed as a true story, I was young enough when I first saw it to actually buy into that notion. Van Damme is joined by a young Forrest Whitaker and a legendary Asian actor, Bolo Yeung, as the villainous Chong Li. There is so much fighting action in this, as well as some great Van Damme blind acting, and one of the great dick punches in cinematic history. At number 42, it's Michael Bay's second appearance, this time with 1996's The Rock, starring Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, and Ed Harris. The story of a rogue general capturing and holding hostage a bunch of tourists on Alcatraz while a team of Navy SEALs, a chemist, and a special agent try to save the day is completely preposterous, but logic is something you just check at the door when you enter the world of Michael Bay. This one is all about the fun of the actors hamming it up and Bay utilizing the better parts of his action style without going too far over the top. This is a movie I watched frequently with my dad and brother growing up, and because of that, it's got a special place of nostalgia inside my heart and on this list. At number 41, it's 1999's action adventure spectacular The Mummy, directed by Stephen Sommers. This was the movie that catapulted Brendan Fraser into stardom. While it's a remake of a 1932 film that almost nobody has actually seen, the 1999 version of The Mummy has much more in common with Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones franchise, and it's arguably the best Indiana Jones-esque movie since The Last Crusade. Sorry, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and The Dial of Destiny. Fraser and co-star Rachel Weisz have electric chemistry, the action is thrilling, and the movie hit the sweet spot for being both enjoyable for adults and kids alike. Maybe, just maybe, we will get a sequel one day with Brendan Fraser now an Academy Award winner and being in the middle of his own career renaissance. At number 40, another John McTiernan entry on the list, though not the last time his name will be called. We are up to 1987's Predator. When I think of sweaty, muscle-bound, testosterone-fueled action, Predator comes to the forefront. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Jesse the Body Ventura, and a young Shane Black in the middle of the jungle being hunted by an alien, and one ugly motherfucking one at that. Though they have attempted to recapture the magic of this film time and time again, nothing has come close to being as cool as the original, though don't sleep on 2022's Prey, which did finally deliver something innovative and original to the Predator franchise. Number 39. I Feel the Need. The need for Jan de Bont's 1994 adrenaline-laden film, Speed. I don't think you can properly explain the cultural phenomenon this movie was to anyone who didn't actually live through it in 94. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was watching this movie repeatedly on VHS. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock on a speeding bus that will explode if it goes below 50 miles an hour, and a diabolical Dennis Hopper chewing up scenery as the bad guy. Having just watched this movie recently, I can confirm it still holds up well and keeps the pedal to the floor from start to finish. If this is one you haven't seen, I would highly recommend it, though don't waste your time with the 1997 sequel Speed 2 Cruise Control, which is proper crap and desperately misses Keanu Reeves, who did not return. At number 38, I'm here to champion one of the most underappreciated action movies of the last 25 years. Let's talk for a minute about 2012's Dredd. Most action aficionados are probably more familiar with 1995's version of this character, Judge Dredd, that starred Sylvester Stallone. I would like to put out this public service announcement that we should all collectively try and wipe that stupid movie from our memory and put all the focus on this newer version, with Carl Urban starring as the lead character. Carl Urban is a name you'll probably know if you've watched the Amazon series The Boys, where he plays Billy Butcher. Dredd has a simple premise, with the lead character having to go into a 200-story apartment building and battle all sorts of bad guys as he tries to bring justice the heinous drug lord Mama, played by Lena Headey, who you'll know as Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Dredd kicks so much ass, and if I can get even one person to watch this movie that doesn't already know about it, I will have done my job. At number 37, one of the greatest movies ever adapted from a TV series, we are going all the way back to 1993 and the Andrew Davis directed classic, The Fugitive. Harrison Ford has starred in several great action movies, and while I personally love something like Air Force One, which I actually watched just last night, I think The Fugitive has a greater legacy, and that's what helps ensure its place on this list. He plays a doctor that gets framed for the murder of his wife and has to go on the run, being chased by a U.S. Marshal, played by Tommy Lee Jones. It's worth noting that this movie was so well received at the time that it got nominated for Best Picture, and Tommy Lee Jones won an Academy Award for his supporting work on the movie. Just like Speed, which I mentioned a couple of moments ago, The Fugitive holds up surprisingly great after 30 years. Number 36. We already had Bad Boys on the list, but it's time for what I believe is the best of the buddy cop action movies. That's 1987's Richard Donner gem, Lethal Weapon. As someone nearing the age of Danny Glover, when he delivered the iconic line, "I'm too old for this shit," I very much identify with this movie more and more as I get older. Glover is perfectly paired with Mel Gibson, and they set the bar for what an on screen pair should be, both in terms of the action and the comedy. What makes the first Lethal Weapon so damn awesome is the strong cast, having a solid director at the helm, and the fantastic script written by Shane Black. And though it didn't make my top 50, every self respecting Lethal Weapon fan needs to go check out Shane Black's 2016 film he both wrote and directed called The Nice Guys, which stars Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe as throwback 1970s cops. Trust me, you'll thank me later. At number 35, though we've had an alien coming to Earth in the countdown already, it's time for us to travel into space with this pick. It's Paul Verhoeven's 1997 sci fi satire, Starship Troopers. When you talk about movies ahead of their time, this is a perfect example to point to. Audience and critics in the late 90s didn't seem to grasp the thematic elements, but we have seen a remarkable revival of this film and its impact over the last 10 to 15 years, with new viewers discovering it. What makes Starship Troopers so great is you can either watch it at a surface level and just enjoy the over the top, bug splattering action and the silly dialogue, or you can study it deeper and see the way Verhoeven was pointing to the dangers of fascism and nationalist ideology. At number 34, how do you like your eggs? Because I prefer mine hard boiled. We have arrived at John Woo's 1992 action thriller. This movie was a favorite of two community friends, both Britt Reinholds Hobson of the excellent 1001 by 1 podcast. You can find them at 1001 by 1 on all the socials, and I Know Movies and You Don't over on Instagram. It stars the legendary Chow Yun Fat and one of my all-time favorite Asian actors, Tony Leung. It has a killer story and some truly dynamic action, notably the extended one-shot scene in the hospital. This is also a great movie to read up on the making of, as the way they had to create some of the action sequences are things from a bygone era now that we were in the new world of technology and green screens. At number 33, this is a pick I know is destined to draw some criticism, either by its inclusion at all or my placement of it being too low. Let's talk for a moment about 2019's Avengers Endgame, the Russo brothers' culmination of 10 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe work. At this point, everyone's mileage of the MCU is varied, and I'm 100% in the camp of having extreme superhero fatigue right now, due to nearly every Marvel film that's been put out in the last 5 years being a copy of a copy of a copy. Now, even with that fatigue, I can't deny the coolness of Endgame, and to a degree, Infinity War before it. Though Kevin Feige and Marvel didn't set out on this path all the way back in 2008 with Iron Man, they were smart enough to realize the potential they had at an early stage and meticulously built an interlocking and connected storyline that grew and grew until Endgame was unleashed upon the world. The fact that Marvel has failed miserably to do anything of note since Endgame further proves that this experience was a one of one and needs to be remembered and celebrated for what it was. At number 32, writer, director, star of the show, Jackie Chan is a one man tornado of action, and 1985's Police Story is my favorite in his catalog. And I'm not alone either, as Seth Vargas of the Movie Friends podcast shared his love for this Hong Kong classic. Jackie Chan skillfully picked up the torch left by Bruce Lee and became the supreme martial arts action star of the 1980s with his inventive action set pieces and ability to do all his own stunt work, allowing the audience to fully buy into each and every scene. Police Story has several fan favorite action moments, including the opening car chase and the climax in a shopping mall, but it's the scene with Chan hanging on for dear life and trying to stop a double decker bus that lives rent free inside my brain. Number 31, the final pick for this part in my series belongs to the undisputed all time king of martial arts filmmaking, Bruce freaking Lee. 1973's Enter the Dragon is the gold standard for this type of action movie. Almost every martial arts film that's been made over the last 50 years has borrowed elements of Enter the Dragon. It changed the game fundamentally. The film is part action, part spy movie, part blaxploitation, and it really feels like the distillation of the 70s decade in film form. Though the entire movie is Bruce Lee being a badass, it's the climactic final battle in the mirror room that has always stood out to me. And that does it for the first 20 action movies in my countdown. Here's a quick recap to close things out. At number 50 was Last Action Hero. At number 49, Goldfinger. Number 48, Bad Boys. At number 47, Con Air. Number 46 was Skyfall. Number 45, Vanishing Point. Number 44, Man on Fire. Number 43 was Bloodsport. Number 42, Michael Bay's The Rock. Number 41 was The Mummy. Number 40, Predator. Number 39, Speed. Number 38, Dread. Number 37, The Fugitive. Number 36, Lethal Weapon. Number 35, Starship Troopers. Number 34, Hardboiled. Number 33, Avengers Endgame. Number 32, Police Story. And number 31 was Enter the Dragon. Now, part 2 will be released next week where I count down numbers 30 through 11. Do you love any of the movies I just listed off? Maybe you hate some of them. Be sure to leave me your feedback on any of the social media platforms where you follow the page, and I will be back soon with more explosive action picks.